A very good afternoon and welcome to the TT Circuit Assen ahead of round 10 of MotoGP in 2025. This one of the most storied, the most historied venues on the entirety of the MotoGP calendar, and this year the Dutch TT celebrates 100 years of running and a centenary celebration for them, the first in 1925, would you believe, and we're back here in 2025 with the MotoGP World Championship currently going quite firmly in the favour of a certain Marc Marquez. Victory last time out, the double last time out at Mugello now sees him 40 points clear of brother Alex Marquez, with Pecco Bagnaia struggles this year continuing, now 110 points back of Marc Marquez. And you feel Louis Suddaby, who joins me, Jack Appleyard, as ever for the next half hour ahead of the pre-event press conference, you feel that Bagnaia's World Championship at this very early stage is pretty much over. It's going to take something absolutely remarkable. We know that he's come back from huge point deficits in the past, but with the form that Marc Marquez is in, you feel as though it's his to lose at this current moment.
Yeah, I'm sure Pecco Bagnaia will be clinging on to 2022 and the 91-point gap that he pulled back on Marc Marquez, but those were in very different circumstances because it was Quartararo on the Yamaha he was trying to chase back in that particular occasion. This time it's a rider in the same team on the same motorcycle who is in peak form at the moment, and Pecco Bagnaia, of course, more to the point, is not. Pecco Bagnaia is struggling. The problems that we've heard from the very start of the season continuing to plague Pecco at the moment. And we said a week ago when we spoke in Mugello, Pecco said a week ago that if it didn't work for him in Mugello, then that was the sign of some genuine issues as the season unfolds. If there's one circuit on the calendar that's even stronger for Pecco Bagnaia than Mugello, it's maybe this one, but there is no sign to that light in the end of the tunnel that Pecco Bagnaia is desperate to see. No signs yet.
And when you're having problems with front-end feeling, the last place you want to come to, certainly the second half of the lap, is Assen. It is a rider favourite. It's fast, it's flowing, it takes huge cojones, and it's going to have to see plenty on show this weekend. It's such a brilliant circuit. And it's a place where Marc Marquez might well say that it's not one of his favoured venues, but it's certainly a venue where he has had success in the past. And like we just said, given the form he's in, it's difficult to look anywhere other than Marc as the big favourite going into the weekend.
No question about that. As you say, he has won here, flag-to-flag victory in 2014. He won one of the best MotoGP races of all time here in 2018. I do think, although I believe Marc when he says that this perhaps isn't one of his stronger circuits historically, if you look at his record, it's maybe not one of his greatest circuits. It might not be an Aragon, it might not be a Phillip Island or a Sachsenring, but I think it's a little bit of a myth that Marc Marquez struggles at circuits such as the TT Circuit Assen. Of course, we were speaking in the run-up to Qatar, weak circuit for Marc Marquez, took pole and did the double, and we were saying much the same in Mugello a couple of weeks ago. He took pole and did the double. Weak circuits for Marc Marquez are still strong circuits for most other riders.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Alex Marquez in Parc Ferme just a couple of days ago was saying, I thought this was an opportunity to try and score some more points than Marc and maybe just close up the fight in the World Championship battle. Instead, another 8 points went in the favour of Marc Marquez as Alex once again limited the damage. And we're going to hear from Alex in our pre-event press conference. We're going to hear from Marc, who's speaking to us earlier on today, very soon indeed. But it's difficult really to sum up Alex Marquez's season so far, because it's without a doubt the best season of his Premier Class career. He's having such incredible success. He's riding as well as we've seen him for a very long time. But I don't know, there's just a feeling of wanting more potentially, given just the amount of times that he's had to play second fiddle. And that's no sort of, that's not sort of playing down the performances, because to finish second to Marc this year and to be beating the riders he is a magnificent achievement. But still, second place is second place. And I'm sure he would like a few more gold medals or a few more P1 trophies back at home.
I think if Alex Marquez had won MotoGP races before this year and been a more regular podium finisher, I think he might look at this year slightly differently. This does still, even though he's very experienced, does feel like a bit of a breakthrough season for Alex Marquez to be at the front on such a consistent basis. We haven't seen that from Alex this consistently prior to 2025. And you mentioned the phrase there, damage limitation for Alex. I guess ultimately it depends what Alex thinks he's fighting for. Does he think he is fighting for the World Championship? Does he genuinely believe he can beat Marc Marquez over a 22-round season? If the answer is yes, then you might have to take a few more risks as we go through this season. He's got a 70-point advantage over Pecco Bagnaia for second place, so that is not under any threat whatsoever. But if Alex Marquez ultimately feels that, given the form of his brother, second in the championship and second in a lot of races is the best that's on offer for him, he maximised it. He got the maximum points that were available for him, kept himself out of trouble and banked the points. So ultimately, if you'd offered Alex Marquez this scenario at the start of the season, he would have unquestionably have taken it. But you do wonder, as these second places continue to pile up, whether his expectations and his goals coming into a weekend may start to change.
Yeah, well, you cannot question the speeds that he's been showing this year, but I think for me the most impressive thing for Alex Marquez is what he's got going on upstairs, the consistency. He's been the most consistent rider on the grid. Marc Marquez has made some big mistakes in big moments, and that's probably why the championship is as close as 40 points currently. But Alex Marquez, outside of Le Mans, where he had a bit of a wobble, week in, week out, he's very quickly understood what my maximum potential is, and he's made sure that he's gone out and maximised that. And there's a lot to be said for that. We saw last year with Jorge Martin, he won the World Championship because he was the most consistent rider, not maybe the fastest at every venue we went to. Now, I don't think that currently, right now, if you want my humble opinion, I don't think we're going to see a similar situation where mistakes are going to come far more frequently for Marc, and Alex could take advantage of that. I feel as if Marc has learnt from those errors at the start of the year, and we're seeing him really find that mid-season form now. But Alex, you've got to give huge credit, and I thought we touched on it in After the Flag a couple of days ago, how for the very first time after Mugello, he spoke about looking over his shoulder. He spoke about making sure he could consolidate that second in the World Championship, and I think that was an interesting look into his mindset.
Yeah, say what you want about Alex Marquez this season. He is ultimately, whatever you say about the progress or lack of it that Ducati have made with their 2025 bike, Alex Marquez is still essentially fighting for the World Championship on a year-old Ducati. Yeah. That does not happen often.
Now, let's welcome into the picture Mr. Brad Binder of the Red Bull KTM Factory Racing concern. How are you? All good?
Yeah, can't complain. And yourselves, all good?
Yeah, all good, mate. All good. We're just speaking about Alex Marquez's consistency so far this year. It's something that of late you've struggled at, but it feels as though you've an important moment really started to find your rhythm, Brad. How vital was it to get those points, to get those laps under your belt in Mugello just a few days ago?
Well, if I count my race laps, it's a lot less than what they should have been this season. So definitely something I need to work on. But yeah, honestly, I feel like we're starting to tick away at it, starting to find my feet again. And yeah, it was important to cross the line in Mugello. But yeah, we just got to keep working, and hopefully now we can start racing a little bit closer to the sharp end again and get some good points.
You speak about work, and it's been obvious throughout the year there's been so much work from KTM, so many different variations of the bike to try and find the right direction. It felt in Mugello like suddenly the bikes were starting to come closer together. Do you feel that you've got that across the board, a baseline now where the four of you can try and work in the same direction together?
Yeah, I mean, in Aragon it was really positive for us. Mugello, the race was a little bit more tricky for sure, but all weekend you could see Maverick and Pedro were a good step ahead. So there's definitely some speed there. I need to figure out how to really get the best out of it for sure. I'm definitely struggling a bit more with the front than they seem to. So yeah, need to find the confidence to just get stuck in, and hopefully it sticks.
Since your MotoGP career began back in 2020, you've always been riding a KTM, but does this feel like a different kind of KTM? We've heard a lot about the best way to ride this bike this year to get the best out of it, and you're having to perhaps change your style to be a bit more smooth on the bike. How difficult has that process been?
Yeah, it's been a bit of a challenge. Definitely you need to be a lot more clean. You need to try and you know, not slide at all in the brakes, try and put the angle clean, you know, especially on throttle, don't overspin too much. So you got to kind of go really fast, not putting in a lot of effort, which normally when I try to go fast, I put in too much effort. So it's been tricky to figure out, but yeah, I slowly feel like we're starting to find our feet.
And we know you made your reputation as a Sunday man in MotoGP, but I guess the key for you now is to try and just shape up on those Friday afternoons, Saturday mornings, just give yourself a little less to do on a Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, I mean, it's like in Aragon, for instance, okay, I ended up bailing anyway, but it was so much easier just starting up front and going with the guys. So it's super important for me to try and find that one lap pace. And when I can find that in the race, I always feel like no matter what the situation, I can always make a plan. So that's my goal. And once we sort that out, I think it will be a different story.
We were just speaking about this being the centenary year of the Dutch TT. It's such a historic venue. Does it feel to you like a place where you walk in, there's that sort of history and that legacy that's come before really speaks to you, resonates?
It's definitely one of the most insane tracks we go to. It's really got an awesome layout. These fast-flowing corners are incredible, and it looks like we got good weather for this Grand Prix too. So, yeah, hopefully this rain all leaves us today, and we left with some sunshine for the rest of the weekend.
Yeah, fingers crossed, Brad. Well, great to have you here. Good luck this weekend. Let's hope it's a good one for you.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
There we go. Great to be able to chat with Brad Binder, who was involved. We didn't see much of it because we're focusing at the front, but a fierce inter-team battle with Pedro Acosta. In the end, Pedro just got him on the final lap, despite Brad giving it a big old lunge up the inside on the final corner. But those guys are battling not where they want to be, but they're certainly giving it everything, and you feel with the talent that KTM have, with Maverick able to potentially lead the way, that hopefully there's light at the end of the tunnel.
And that's the key point, isn't it? Maverick has been leading the way so far from a KTM point of view. Every weekend we've gone to, it feels, since we returned to Europe on the back of that second place that wasn't a second in the end for Maverick Vinales in Qatar, he's been the leading light for KTM. Brad Binder, I think he would look at his race pace and say it's on a par with Pedro Acosta and Maverick Vinales. He's just having to put that race pace in from too far back down the grid. Very rarely this year have we seen him in qualifying 2. It's even rarer to see him in qualifying 2 automatically at the end of a Friday. So it's pretty clear from Brad's point of view where the shortcomings have been. It's been getting himself a grid position ultimately going into Saturday afternoon and Sunday. If you can change that, we know he's a scrapper, we know he's a fighter on a Sunday, we know in the heat of battle he's very, very good. If he can get himself on those front 3 rows, as he said, it makes such a difference to your weekend.
Well, that's the thing, from speaking to him there, I think maybe you guys at home can understand the challenges he's trying to go through to trying to just reteach himself how to ride this bike. I think a lot of people at home, me included, fell in love with Brad Binder when he moved into the MotoGP class because the thing was never in line. It was sideways, front wheel, back wheel. He was so aggressive on the bike, but he was able to make it work, and now that just isn't suiting with the way in which the development direction has gone, and it proves to be a real challenge having to relearn how to get the most out of the bike. I mean, how difficult must that sound? To be fast, I have to go slow, which I know for a lot of riders can be the case, and they have to be smooth, but you feel that Brad's at his best when he's on the ragged edge. Yeah,
and Pedro Acosta was interesting on that after the Grand Prix of Mugello as well, where he suddenly came into that battle with Brad Binder, having rode the KTM a certain way, and then decided, you know what, I'm going to have to just train my brain here, just switch it off and just ride it how I ride the KTM. There doesn't seem to be, as we've been discussing already, a clear direction with KTM. Yeah. There are so many new parts being thrown at the bike, so many old parts being brought back onto the bike to try and find a combination that works. All 4 KTM riders are still trying to find that formula. We're now at round 10 of 22 this season, and they still haven't found it, which I guess tells you that KTM aren't necessarily sure themselves what the correct combination is. We've seen that a lot of the years in testing with KTM in pre-season. They try all the different parts, but by the time they get to the first race, they've settled on their combination. But we're 10 rounds into 2025, and they're still waiting to find it. Yeah, absolutely. Right, let's touch on Pecco Bagnaia. We're going to hear from him shortly. We've touched on the challenges he's faced. I mean, what kind of a mindset is he going to be in this weekend? He's just come from Mugello, where for the first time in 3 years, he's failed to take victory, failed to even stand on the podium. He's had barely any time to analyse what's happened there, any time to try and make changes. He comes to another place where he's got great memories. Does that make it better or worse for him coming to a place where he's had success before? Because I'm sure he's fearing the worst potentially. Yeah, I'm sure it makes it better on the way into the weekend, but as soon as the sort of dawning realisation kicks in that those good times aren't coming back this weekend, it then starts to have that reverse effect. He looked crestfallen, didn't he, after the Italian Grand Prix? You can understand why. Pecco Bagnaia's got such a strong record. And so the first time, really, he actually owned up as to just how much it was hurting him. He desperately wanted to get on the sprint podium on the Saturday for his home fans. Couldn't do so, of course, for the problems that he suffered through all season. I couldn't certainly win the sprint. He did get on the podium. And then ultimately, we saw the fighting spirit, as Marco Bezzecchi gives us, and you at home, a little bit of a wave on his way past. The fighting spirit is clearly there for Pecco Bagnaia. Yeah. He desperately wants to get in there and give his new teammate some problems, and he certainly did that in the first 5 or 6 laps of the Italian Grand Prix. It was some of the best races racing we've seen probably since that Pecco-Jorge Martin battle in Sepang late last year. But ultimately, he can't trust the front end, doesn't have the confidence in it, and he's having to ride on the edge that ultimately he's faced with a decision, either leave a bit of margin, slow down, or crash. And he's having to take the latter, which added up to 4th place.
Absolutely right. Well, let's hear from the man himself then. How does the former world champion feel ahead of this round 10 at the TT Circuit Assen? Is it a venue where his fortunes can change, or is it going to be that same old front-end woes for Pecco Bagnaia? Let's hear what he had to say.
Pecco, obviously here in Assen a few days after Mugello. How have you reflected on the Italian GP before this Grand Prix?
That I just want to be focused on the positives, and we had positives in Mugello. Honestly, we calmed a bit my bike, and was more stable, so this is great. I was able for the first time this season to fight against Marc, so just for 7 laps, but it's better than 0, so this is another positives, and I just want to restart from this and try to enjoy this weekend because it's one of the best track for me, and I just want to enjoy.
What's the mindset heading into this weekend? Obviously, you've won here plenty of times. You love the track like Mugello. So what's the mindset heading into Friday morning and afternoon?
And like always, super positives. I want to enjoy, like I said, and I think this track is arriving in a current moment where the situation is not the best, but we are rising back. So I just want to enjoy. I just want to try to work maybe in a different way, but be competitive and prepared for the races.
You said you settled the bike down a little bit on the front end in Mugello. Talk us through a little bit more, explain a bit more about how that front end feeling was better compared to previous races.
Was a bit better because it was more stable. This season I'm struggling a lot with the movement from the front, and it's the first time that this is happening, so we weren't prepared to solve it. So what we did in Mugello was a little details that have helped me a bit, and for this race weekend we will try just to go in the same direction, and maybe we'll add more.
Is this weekend going to be a little bit better for the front end than Mugello? Less work on it?
I think so. Also because the temperature will be a bit lower, but let's see, because never saying that we solved the problem, and just to let's see if we can be competitive from the start.
Thank you, Pecco. Have a good weekend.
So he does say, Pecco Bagnaia, that this circuit comes at the correct moment, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see how he rolls out of the box on Friday morning. The beauty with Pecco Bagnaia, maybe not for the team, but for us in the commentary box, is you can always tell how he's feeling under the visor, because like true Italians, there's a lot of hand gestures going on that tell you the story perfectly, whether he's feeling it or whether he's not.
Both on the bike and also in the box when he gets off it. Last year when we came here, Pecco Bagnaia was quickest from Friday morning. He dominated the weekend. It felt at times last year as if he could win this Grand Prix at 50, 60, 70%. That's ultimately, I think, what his task is going to be this weekend. He's clearly not at 100%. We've seen that from the very start of the season. Pecco Bagnaia will be hoping that even in the shape he is at the moment, he might still be able to take Assen. He pointed out the conditions here this weekend. He did say it's going to be cooler this weekend, although it is still going to be hot on Sunday, but nowhere near as hot as we had in Mugello a week ago. It makes a nice change for us to have the long sleeves on for once, because it was absolutely chucking down with rain earlier on this morning. It has finally stopped. But yeah, Pecco Bagnaia needs a lift, and I don't think he cares at this stage where he gets it from. Yeah,
he just needs a result. He needs something to put a smile on his face. Well, to be fair, we had that in Aragon, and that momentum quickly disappeared, so let's see what he can do here. You feel this an important weekend, because coming up after this, Sachsenring, Brno, you feel as though if he isn't to take any success here, isn't to have any joy here, then Marc Marquez is more than capable of piling on the misery at those two venues. Speaking of the 8-time world champion, the 6-time king of MotoGP, he's not going to be with us in the pre-race press conference, so we caught up with him earlier to see how the 93 is feeling ahead of round 10 of 2025.
Mark, here in Assen, you said in Mugello that it's a weekend to defend. What's your mindset coming into this weekend? We know historically it's not a circuit you necessarily love, but still fast at. So, yeah, what's your mindset heading into this one?
Yeah, I mean, Assen is a racetrack where some years I has been super fast, some years I was struggling more. in my personal calendar, is a racetrack with the same mentality as Mugello. Try to defend, try to don't lose a lot of points, but being optimistic. I mean, in Mugello I has been optimistic from Thursday, means that I will try everything, but realistic. Realistic means that is a racetrack where normally, theoretically, is not a racetrack that I like or I take the maximum points in the past.
Said that about Qatar and then Mugello. I know
Yes.
you're not going to get overconfident because you're experienced enough to not do that, and you've said that a few times already this year. But do those performances give you more confidence heading into a weekend like this?
Yeah, of course, Qatar and Mugello has been unexpected wins or victories and unexpected weekends because I achieved the 37 points and was not on my predictions. But yeah, the fact that I has been realistic and calm during all weekend, I think helps me. So I will try to keep the same mentality here in Assen because I knew that Pecco and Alex will be very fast, and maybe Di Gianantonio normally also here is very fast.
I was going to ask about who you see as your main rivals this weekend. Obviously, Pecco's winning the last few years. Alex has been strong everywhere we've gone. Are you expecting more of the same like Mugello?
Yeah, my main opponent is the second rider in the championship. That is Alex. He's in a very good form. He's riding super fast. I'm pushing, but always he's there. So he's doing an incredible season. So my main opponent is Alex. Second main opponent, Pecco, because he's third on the championship, but already we have some nice gap on points. So we need to manage and to accept if, for example, Pecco or Alex or another rider are faster than us in Assen. At the same time, we are not on time to already thinking about the points and manage. But you need to understand during the weekend what you can do.
Compared to last year, how different do you expect this year's Ducati to feel compared to the one you were riding last year around this circuit? A very demanding circuit, obviously.
Yeah, last year I struggled. I struggled a lot during all weekend here. I crashed in the sprint race, then on the main race, okay, I had the issue with the pressure, but the feeling was not the perfect one. Let's see, because now we are riding a Ducati, but a different Ducati with a different bike balance. And last races we did a step. In Mugello we did a step. So let's see here. In FP1 you already understand immediately where you are and where are the opponents.
Thank you, Mark. Have a good weekend.
Thank you.
So there we go, Marc Marquez playing down his chances. I have to be perfectly honest, I don't believe it.
We're not playing them down, are we?
No. Marc Marquez is the big favourite to make it 3 consecutive Grand Prix victories. That for the first time since 2019, which tells the story. That's the imperious form he's in. He's really starting to rediscover that magic of the late 2010s, is Marc Marquez. This year you feel as though he's the favourite for victory. Alex Marquez is going to be pushing him all the way, as we've seen throughout the season. The big question mark, I think, Lewis, is who's going to take that final spot on the podium? And there's some big contenders there. We've touched on Pecco Bagnaia. We'll talk about Fabio Di Gianantonio. What a confidence boost that was last time out. But after the frustration, the disappointment of Mugello, this lady right here is pointing at exactly who we're thinking. Fabio Quartararo. This circuit, I feel, in the past has been a Yamaha one. It's been a Fabio one. Grip levels at a point where you think that they can be competitive. I think Fabio will be really rating his chances here.
And temperatures a little bit lower as well.
Yeah.
The temperatures skyrocketed in Mugello, and that really did catch Yamaha out. They were hoping, I think, that the medium rear tyre was going to be the race choice. It wasn't. It was the soft, and we knew that they couldn't get the soft to the end of the sprint, so that pretty much made it very clear how they were going to get on over double the distance in the race itself. Quartararo fell to 13th in the end by the end of the Grand Prix in Mugello. 13th, 14th and 15th for the 3 Yamahas that finished the race, and ultimately the less said about that, the better from their point of view. As you say, this is a circuit that has brought the best out of Fabio and the Yamaha before, so you feel that they can only be stronger than they were in the Grand Prix at Mugello. How far that can get them up the order here remains to be seen. I think Quartararo is going to be a real contender for pole on Saturday morning.
Yep.
No question about that, but whether he could stay there at the sharp end as the Grand Prix goes on, not quite so sure.
Right, let's walk down the paddock then, and let's tick off 60 seconds, some of the contenders ahead. First, let's start with this man here, Maverick Vinales, who's just dipped out of view to get ready for the press conference. Robbed cruelly, you feel, of the potential. I feel he had the pace to be standing on the podium in Mugello last time out. Got an incredible record here. he's one that surely is going to be in the mix this weekend.
Won his first ever visit here to Assen back in 2011 when he was a 16-year-old. He has loved this circuit from the first time he came here. And we touched upon earlier on, if KTM are going to have a rider in the battle for the podium, it feels like it's most likely to be Maverick. He has got a superb record here. So the form he's been on so far, it feels like a big result is coming if his luck turns.
What about this man, Marco Bezzecchi? Surely he's going to be fancying his chances of getting on the podium. Once again, as we've been saying time after time, we sound like a broken record. If he can get the business done on Saturday morning, he's got a great chance.
Won the first ever sprint here in 2023, did Marco Bezzecchi, and you feel again, as much as this circuit's going to bring the best out of the Yamaha, you feel it could bring the best out of the Aprilia as well. We're a bit like a broken record when it comes to Aprilia and to Marco Bezzecchi, but he just needs a grid position. Give him a place on the front two rows of the grid and he can do damage from there. Again,
a great job to be able to come through to fifth in the Grand Prix at Mugello last time out. If he was a little bit further forward, he would have stood a great chance. Further back, Fabio Di Gianantonio. What a ride that was. Has figured out, it seems, the puzzle that is the GP25. He's opted for that new aero package. He was able to put it to great use, closing down and passing Pecco late on just a few days ago. What will that confidence do to him?
Huge, and Marc Marquez was taking notice of him there, wasn't he, when he spoke to our colleague Elliot York. So Marc's expected Digia to be in the conversation at the front end this weekend. And what was noticeable about Digia in both the sprint and the Grand Prix of Mugello was how strong he was at the end. Had he got past and into third place, past Pecco Bagnaia a lap or two earlier than he was, it certainly looked like second place was on the table for Digia, as much as Alex Marquez was probably managing that towards the end of the race. Di Gianantonio, like Bezzecchi, is another rider who's pointing at qualifying and saying, I'm starting at least a row further back down the grid than I really ought to be, and it's putting me on my back foot and leaving me playing catch-up in the Grand Prix, rather than using the podium pace he's got to actually be in the podium battle from the start. He's always arriving just too late in Grand Prix.
As we walk past the Gresini racing box, I think it'd be foolish to rule out the chances of Fermin Aldeguer. Looking at the timesheets in Mugello, not much to shout about, but the manner in which he bounced back and the pace he was able to show after that near collision with Marco Bezzecchi was worthy of the top five, maybe even pushing for the podium, and this is a place that he really likes.
He lost around a dozen seconds with that moment early on lap 3 when he went off at San Donato, and if you sort of correct how his race went, as you say, he could have been somewhere near the top 6. Does have a bit of a checkered record around here, it's fair to say, does Fermin Aldeguer. Track limits usually is a bit of a problem for him around here. Every time he's been here, he's had a long lap penalty for track limits, including the one that cost him the Moto2 victory here last season. Of course, he's matured, he's getting better and better as a rider and getting that experience in MotoGP. You expect, if he can get himself into Q2, that he's certainly going to be involved in that top 6 battle.
And if we spin round in this direction as well to show the LCR Honda squad and the Castrol HRC Honda squads, not a lot to write home about in Mugello, but when Luca Marini joined us on commentary and we posed the question of Assen coming up, his eyes lit up. I think everyone at Honda feels that this is an opportunity for them to get back in the mix as well.
Very user-friendly motorcycle. We've heard that from the start of the season. So, yeah, Honda will be fairly confident this weekend. They kind of need to get their season back on track a little bit, don't they? It has sort of fallen off the rails a little bit in the last couple where they've not gone too well in those scorching hot conditions. And, of course, Honda this weekend, one further line on them. Taka Nakagami no longer replacing Luca Marini this weekend. It's Aleix Espargaro who's back in the hot seat this weekend. Yeah,
worth mentioning that. Aleix ahead of the weekend saying that it's a dream come true to be riding for the most storied team in the history of MotoGP. Of course, the factory Honda squad won more races, won more world championships than anybody else, so a dream for him to be stepping into those colours this weekend. Let's just touch on Marc Marquez before we say goodbye. In fact, that's all the time we've got. I was going to say whether Marc Marquez, given the fact that he's got 2 strongholds coming up in the Saxon Ring and Brno, whether he might be just looking further down the line and might just take the points and offer this weekend. But then I quickly remembered, he's won 8 World Championships for a reason. He's looking to try and win 3 on the bounce for the first time in 2019. Write him off at your peril. He might say that this isn't his playground, but I fancy Marc Marquez is going to be right in the mix this weekend. Can any of these 4 men stop him from making it 3 on the bounce? Will it be brother Alex Marquez? Will it be Maverick Viñales? Will it be Marco Bezzecchi? Or could we see a surprise and the likes of, who's the final person in the press conference?
Maverick Viñales.
I said Maverick. We've got Marco Bezzecchi.
Marco Bezzecchi and Fabio Di Gianantonio.
Fabio Di Gianantonio. Could it be him? There we go. Let's listen to those 4 guys.